The Mid-America Veterans Museum is a 501c3 nonprofit business. The museum would not exist without the donations of our generous community. Your donations ensure the museum continues to share and preserve the stories of our veterans. To donate, visit mavm.org and click on Donate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. The primary purpose of the Operation Insight podcast is to educate. The views, information, or opinions expressed on the Operation Insight podcast are solely the views of the individuals or guests involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Operation Insight does not accept responsibility for their views or comments. The Operation Insight podcast may at times cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to suicide, abuse, violence, severe mental illness, sex, drugs, and alcohol addiction. You are advised to refrain from watching or listening to the Operation Insight podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. Neither the company, host, director, or the guest shall at any time be liable for the content covered, causing offense, distress, or any other reaction. Welcome to the Operation Insight podcast from the Mid-America Veterans Museum with your host, Jason Galvin, and co-host, Sergeant Ethan Gross.
Welcome back, family. Jason and I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Mr. Walter Wally Mayer. We're here in Wally's home with his lovely wife, Rosalie. Wally, you have a great apartment here.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us to your home.
The reason that it is such a distinct pleasure to speak with Wally, besides the fact that he's a fun gentleman to talk to, is Wally is a World War II veteran and a survivor of the Holocaust. Wally served in the United States Army from 1944 to 1946. He served both stateside and also in the Pacific Theater. And then once World War II ended, he actually served in Korea for a short time as well.
Yeah, that was before the Korean War. There was occupation duty after the war.
It's going to be very difficult, Jason, to fit in all of the details of Wally's life because he's lived a long life. That's the other thing I almost forgot to mention. Your next birthday will be your 100th. Is that right?
Yes.
Next March.
Right.
March 2026 will be Wally's 100th birthday.
It's a distinct honor, though.
Very much so. Well, Wally, before I ask you to tell the audience about yourself, I want to give the audience a little bit of a picture of your early life and also what led you and your family to leave Germany. So some of this is very well known, well documented, the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany post-World War I. But Adolf Hitler had actually been a soldier in World War I. He served in the...
World War II. My dad was in World War I.
Yes. And that's the connection I find kind of interesting. So not only did Wally's father serve, but so did the future Fuhrer of the Third Reich. In 1923... And if there's anything I say incorrect, Wally, correct me, because you're the one that lived this, not me. But in 1923, Adolf Hitler and other leaders of the newly formed Nazi Party took part in the Munich Putsch, otherwise known as the Beer Hall Putsch, which was a failed coup d'etat. Hitler was actually imprisoned for those actions, but within a year or so was released from prison and soon restarted and redoubled his efforts to rise in power in Germany through the Nazi Party that he had helped to create. By 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President von Hindenburg.
Right.
And then only about a year later, the president died.
Right.
And Hitler, that's when he essentially usurped power and claimed himself Fuhrer of Germany. By 1938, March of 1938, Germany annexed Austria. And a little bit over a year later, September 1st, 1939, World War II officially began with the invasion of Poland. Now, by that time, you and your family were in the United States by 1938. So I think this is a good point for me to pass it over to our special guest. Wally, let's start by explaining to the audience your family history. I'd love to hear more about your father since he was a soldier. He served for 7 years, is that correct?
Yeah, at the time, there was conscription, is the name
Conscription.
of it? Yeah, and everybody in Germany had to be, if they were 18 years old, they had to be in the service. So my dad went into the service, and then while he was in the service, the war broke out. So I had to stay another 4 years in the service. And then he was taken prisoner by the British. When the war was over, they put him in a British prison camp, and he was in there for a year or so. So he finally came home and met my mama, and they got married in 1923. The war was over in 1919.
Where exactly was that British prison camp that your father was sent to?
In France somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know where, but it was in France.
So now you were born 1926.
Right.
So a few years after your parents met. Were you their firstborn child?
Yes. No. I had a little sister died at birth.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. What were your parents' names, Wally?
My dad's name was Carl, and Mama's name was Netta.
Carl and Netta. Okay. So 1926, you're born. Now you're born in Wiesbaden.
Right.
So tell us about Wiesbaden in that region of Germany.
Okay. Actually, we first lived in a little town called Bierstadt.
Bierstadt.
Bierstadt was a suburb of Wiesbaden. Then there was inflation in Germany, and money had no value. And all the people were out of work, and there was bad times. And that's what gave rise to Hitler.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Wally. This is a point of history that personally, I think a lot of people find this interesting, but I know I do. There's a lot of things that went into the rise of Nazism, one of which was, like you mentioned, the stock market crash in 1929. Right. Germany, since they lost World War I, they had to pay reparations.
Right.
And so financially, Germany was in pretty dire straits.
Broke.
Yeah, they were broke. And so what's interesting about this is I think Adolf Hitler found sort of a weakness in German culture and society and in the population, and he just twisted the knife a little bit. He reminded people, you don't have any money. Well, you can't find a job. Well, you can't provide for your family. And I think I've heard you say this before, but a scapegoat was needed, especially for Nazism. They needed a scapegoat to rise in popularity. And that's where you get this discrimination, this awful discrimination against the Jewish people.
Right. He didn't like Jews. He wasn't even a German. He was born in Austria. He was an Austrian.
What do you remember as a child about the prejudice and the discrimination against the Jewish people in Germany?
Oh, boy. Well, it started off, let's say, for me personally, in school, I couldn't go to school anymore. No Jews were allowed to go to school, so we had our own school.
When did that start?
Well, when Hitler got into power, that was in 1933.
Were you school age at that time?
Yes, I was because I was...
You would have been 7 at that time, is that right? 6 or 7 years old?
So you had been with your friends that were in school, and then all of a sudden you couldn't go to school anymore.
Most of the friendships ended.
Oh,
And we got new friendships because we went to the Jewish school. And we met a lot of other kids. Same boat.
What can you recall about how your parents reacted to discrimination that was around them at that time?
Well, my dad was, he was a solid German. He was in the German army all those years, and he said, they can't do nothing like that to me.
He felt he had strong German heritage, and he appreciated his German. I got you.
Very, very strong heritage in Germany, generations and generations.
And so he felt it was a little odd that, well, I'm a German.
He felt hurt
Yeah.
because all the time he spent, fighting for the German
Sure.
government and promoting the German government and all those years, and he felt betrayed.
If I understand correctly, your father was also part of a veterans organization.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He belonged to JF.
It was specifically a Jewish veterans organization.
RJF, which means R, Reichsbund Jüdische Frontsoldaten.
Okay. I need you to translate that for us.
German, Jewish, front, meaning...
Combat, like combat veteran?
Yeah, combat.
Gotcha.
That's a word.
Gotcha.
Combat, German Jewish combat veteran.
Wow.
That was an organization.
So like you said, your father was proud of his service as a German soldier.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, medals and stuff. And the first thing he did when we left Germany, on the train, he took a whole box of medals he had and threw them out the window. And he started to cry. I says, Dad, what'd you do that for? He says, we're never coming back.
Can you recall your emotion when that occurred, when that happened?
Yeah.
How did it feel to you as a son?
Terrible. I says, why? What do we do?
When in 1936 exactly did you and your family leave Germany? Do you remember the month?
The what?
The month that you left. When was that exactly in 36?
Oh, boy. I don't remember.
The reason I ask is because the Olympics took place in Germany in 1936. I'm wondering
Right,
if you were
that's
there for that.
That was it. That was during the time, the Summer Olympics. I remember that. And the World's Fair in Paris in 1937.
So that's right. So you depart Germany, summer of 36. You arrive in Belgium. Is that correct?
No, we went first to Luxembourg.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I went to Luxembourg because my mama had a sister there. We went and stayed with her for a while before we went to Belgium. And Belgium had a sister in Liège, Belgium. Had a sister there. We visited with them for a while. We stayed with them until my dad went to Antwerp, Belgium, where the American consul was, and got papers so we could come to the United States.
And then from there, you caught the...
See, I came in legally.
that's right.
I came in legally through the American consul in Liège. No, not in Liège, in Antwerp.
Okay.
Antwerp, Belgium. And from there we went to Paris. And from there, Dad bought tickets on a ship going to the United States.
That was the Champlain?
SS Champlain, yes.
Now, before we get to your boat ride over the United States, like you had mentioned, you got to see the World's Fair in Paris in 1937.
Right.
What do you recall about that experience?
What I remember about it was two great big buildings across from each other. One was Russian and one was German. And they were like cats and dogs. Tension, politics.
Now, before we get to you immigrating and escaping Nazi Germany, I want to just dwell on just a little bit longer your time in Germany, because it's not often we get to talk to someone who was there. The Holocaust, most people may not know this, but it started in 1933.
Right.
There were already executions and murders going on of Jewish people.
People were missing. Dad's friends weren't there all of a sudden. At the time, I don't know what happened to them. And anyway, the first concentration camp we heard about was Dachau.
That was the very first that they created.
Yeah. We heard about Dachau. A lot of people disappeared there all of a sudden. And that's when my dad says, let's pack up and we're going.
So you would have been a 10-year-old at that time.
I was, yes, around 10, 11, yes.
What can you remember in terms of the feeling you had while you were still in Germany? Could you feel it in the air that something was changing?
No. I didn't have the knowledge or the...
So your parents, really, you had to rely on your parents to know it's time for us to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when Daddy said, they actually picked me up. I was on vacation at my grandma's. I always used to go in the summertime to grandma's for my summer vacation from school. And I was there during that summer, and my dad says, come meet us at the railroad station. We're coming to see you. So they came on the railroad to the station, and Dad had two great big suitcases. They were actually, like trunks, steamship trunks, two of them, plus my little case with my clothes in them. And they picked me up at the railroad station, which was in Luxembourg, because Bollendorf had... The river was a sour river, and it crossed Bollendorf. There was a Luxembourger side, and there was a German side. The train went on the Luxembourger side. So that's where I went over the bridge into Luxembourg and met him at the station, at the railroad station. And from there we went into Luxembourg and started our trip.
So before that time, before your parents met you at the train depot, did you know that you were leaving Germany?
No. No, I did not.
At what point in time did they tell you we're not coming back?
Oh, sometimes on that train.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to ask you about, Wally, since you were born and raised in Wiesbaden and near Frankfurt, did you ever get to go to Kaiserslautern or Simbach, that area of Germany?
Kaiserslautern?
Kaiserslautern. It's about 100 miles south.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've been there or not, to tell you the truth. I don't think I had.
The only reason I ask is my wife was in the Army and she was stationed near Kaiserslautern.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if you had been there before.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend here in the States that went to Kaiserslautern.
Okay.
And was in the Army there.
So let's move to, you're on the USS Champlain. Yeah. Now, if I understand correctly, you didn't quite have your sea legs at that point in time.
No, I got seasick real easy.
Tell us about that experience.
I was sick in the dog. Kept throwing up. Oh, terrible shape. I'm in bad shape.
I'm guessing that was your first time on a large ship like that.
Yeah, it was first time on any kind of ship.
Yeah.
Finally made it to the United States on the SS Champlain and landed in New York. And landed in New York on that pier and got off the boat. And the immigration people were there, and they checked us in. I I didn't have to go to Ellis Island or any of those places.
Now, you lived in Harlem. You lived in Harlem, is that right?
Well, we lived near there, yeah. When we first moved to New York, I went to school in PS 126 in New York City. I went to school, which was actually located close to Harlem, yes. Harlem was all black in those days, and we lived on the other side, on the west side. Harlem was on the east side. And we lived on the west side, but it was only a few blocks.
What was it that kept your family in New York for that year or so? Why did you stay in New York?
My dad couldn't find a job. He was looking for a job.
I see.
Well, what did he do for a living? What was his trade outside of being in the military?
What was he? He was a salesman.
Salesman, okay.
Yeah, he was a salesman. And in Germany, too. He used to sell cloth, piece goods.
Yes.
Cloth, they used to call it. You got to remember, in those days, there was no ready-to-made clothes.
Yeah, you had to make your own clothes. That's right.
For men, and they used to have to go to the tailor to get fitted for a suit. And everybody in Germany had two suits, one to get married in and one to get buried in. So, and my dad used to sell cloth, usually the English woolens, to tailors. Every little town had a tailor because of that, and he used to sell them the woolens to make the suits for the men.
Now, was he having a hard time getting a job because he was an immigrant, or what was the reason why he was having a hard time?
He had a hard time. Why?
Yeah, why was he having a hard time? Was it because he was an immigrant? Or?
Everybody had a hard time.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Things were bad in the United States in those days. People were out of work. Guys were on the streets selling apples. It was a tough time.
Was that a culture shock for you, moving from Germany to New York?
Not too bad, because times were bad in Germany. Yeah, times were very bad in Germany. That's what gave rise to Hitler's power.
If I understand correctly, Wally, you had an uncle that lived in St. Louis.
My dad did, yes.
Okay.
He had 3 uncles that lived in St. Louis. My grandma, who died, who I never knew, that grandma, I knew my mama's mother.
In Luxembourg.
In Luxembourg, but I didn't know my daddy's mother. She died very young. And I knew my grandpa. He was still alive when we left.
So you had 3 uncles in St. Louis. Your dad's having a tough time.
My dad had 3
I'm sorry. So you had 3 great uncles in
I had 3 great uncles.
St. Louis.
Yeah. I didn't know any of them. When I came to this country, I met one of them. His name was Ike Ackerman. He must have had a lot of money because he lived in the Congress Hotel.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
He lived there with his wife. His job, he was originally a commissioner at the stockyards in East St. Louis. That was his job. The other one was Leopold. He was in business with somebody else here, and they had a hat factory making ladies' hats. And the third one was Louis. Louis Ackerman was very rich. In fact, without Louis Ackerman, we would have never made it. He left my dad a lot of money.
Your father inherited money from that uncle?
Yeah.
Is that part of how you're able to make the trip over to the United States?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Not only that, but made a living off of that all our lives.
Wow.
Because we got dividends monthly or every couple of months, we got dividends on stocks that my daddy owned
Wow.
because of Uncle Louis.
How about that?
I never met Uncle Louis because I was a young kid when he died in 29 or 28, and he owned about, I don't know, a dozen or more department stores.
I think it's an interesting point to make here, Jason. You know, Wally, you've told us about these three great uncles of yours. They were all already in the United States.
Long time.
And so my, not really a question, a statement I wanted to make. I think this really demonstrates how much your father loved his country of Germany. He was still there when it sounds like a lot of your family had already immigrated out of Germany.
Right. But they didn't immigrate because of the Nazis. Those
Sure.
uncles were here in this country before World War I.
I see. Okay.
So that would have been before 1919.
Okay. And so you moved to St. Louis.
But we moved here because my dad didn't have a place to work. We needed a job, and he thought maybe the uncles would help him. But two of them were already dead, and the third one was couldn't.
Retiring or something.
He didn't have it all.
I see. Was he older at that point, I'm
Yeah,
guessing?
he had
Alzheimer's or something. Dementia or Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And now, if I understand correctly, your father, you guys arrived here. Your father still had some trouble finding a job.
Oh, yes. Times are bad here. Very bad. Nobody had a job. People were walking on the streets, man, looking for work, and there was no work.
But eventually you all bought, is it an apartment complex that you bought and you rented it out, something of that nature?
Yeah, just an apartment. Daddy went and rented an apartment on Waterman, and we rented out rooms to people that came coming from Germany. So we rented out some of these rooms, and I was a kid then, and I went to Hamilton School. This was on Waterman Avenue, and I went to Hamilton School there for a few years, and then I went to Soldan High School, and the war broke out while I was going there, and I got drafted in the Army as soon as I was 18, and I was in the United States Army for about 3 years, not quite, and came home looking for work. I was either going to school, going to university, or work. And I decided to go to work.
Going back to the moment you were drafted and the moment you find out that you're going to be in the United States Army, did you have a conversation with your parents about that?
If I did, I don't remember.
Well, I'm curious, did your dad say anything about the prospect of you being in the service?
They weren't happy, I tell you that.
What was it that made them unhappy about? Besides, obviously, there's a risk, especially with World War II going on.
They want to lose their only child.
Sure. What fears did you have about being in the military?
I had no idea what was going on.
Did it excite you at all?
Not really.
Thank you for your honesty.
I wasn't too excited.
Yeah.
They sent you down to Jefferson Barracks, and then sent us to Texas.
Camp Hood.
Camp
Now
Hood,
Fort Hood,
Texas,
yeah.
yeah. I went to Camp Hood, Texas, and from there I went to Fort Ord in
California.
California, and from there they shipped me overseas to Hawaii, and I spent about 6 months in Hawaii, and then I went put on a boat to fight.
You were there for the Battle of Okinawa,
Right,
and that's where you were awarded the Bronze Star.
right.
Okay. If you don't mind, Wally, I'd like to go through some of these stages somewhat slowly. So Camp Hood at that time. Camp Hood, was that where you did your basic training, or was that where you did your job training?
Basic training.
Basic training.
Had no job training. They gave me told me I was a clerk typist, MO, and I didn't know how to type, which was really typical of the Army.
So you finished basic training at Camp Hood.
Right.
How long, can you recall how long that was back then?
Yeah, 6 weeks.
It was 6 weeks, okay. Which is significantly shorter than it is now, but they needed to churn people out quickly back then for good reason. So after Camp Hood, you went to Fort Ord. What do you remember about Fort Ord? That's just north of Monterey, California. It's a beautiful spot of the country.
Nothing really. I didn't know a damn thing about it. And stayed out there just because they told me to stay there, and waited for the powers to be to put me where they want me. And they guess they didn't want me too much because I didn't know a goddamn thing. I didn't. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground.
So how long did you spend at Fort Ord?
Not very.
And then you went off to Hawaii.
About 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, very short. And then Hawaii.
Right.
Now, Hawaii is where you start having a little bit of fun, if I understand. You actually got to be privy to some secret messages that were going on in the Pacific Theater.
I worked I worked at 10th Army headquarters. That was first established the 10th Army, and I worked in the headquarters, and I worked they put me into a room, and I sat at a desk, and they brought me messages. I was in a cage, wire cage, and I sat there, and I took the messages, and each had a code number, and I put the code number in a book. And then I gave the messages to whomever they were addressed to. And there was a Marine guard at the door to make sure I didn't steal them, I guess. After they read the messages, I got them back, and I can check them off the book. So I got all the messages back, and the Marine and I went down to the quadrangle at Schofield Barracks and had a barrel, and we used to burn the messages every day.
You would also scramble the ashes just to be sure, right?
I had to make sure everything was kosher there.
Yeah. What did you enjoy about being stationed in Hawaii?
What did I enjoy? Oh, after the forward bunch left, I had a command car, and they gave me a job. I had to pick up the officers' laundry and take it to the quartermaster. So I picked up the bags. I gave it to the quartermaster. Yeah, that was.
You got to drive around Hawaii in the
I got
officer's
to drive
vehicle.
around Hawaii. That was fun.
Yeah, I bet.
I used to take my command car, and I'd drive myself down to the beach.
Uh-huh. You took some liberties there.
That's awesome.
Hawaii, and I used to spend quite a few hours at the beach.
Just a long time getting laundry, right?
Traffic.
Traffic, yep.
Yeah, oh yeah. Had a fun time there. Used to surf. I had a mattress cover.
Okay.
And he got it wet, and he filled it up with air and tied it, and then put it on the water and use it as surf.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
That's awesome.
That's pretty great.
That's cool.
Now, you mentioned, Wally, that there was a time when 10th Army, they deployed forward. They went into the Pacific Theater. But you, at some point, also went forward near Japan. So
Yes.
tell us about what circumstances led you to be deployed.
Well, it was, I guess, in Okinawa before the war was over, and there was still Japs on the island, and we were routing them and get them.
Now, if I recall correctly, the 10th Army had a few divisions of Marines, and one of those divisions actually had FDR's son, James Roosevelt. Is that right?
He worked at headquarters, and he was one of those officers I gave the messages
Oh,
to.
really? Wow.
Yeah.
One of your commanders actually was killed in Okinawa. Is that right?
Oh, the head general got killed.
Oh, wow. The general. Tell us
Yeah.
about that
General
occurrence.
Buckner. General Buckner.
Oh, is that why they
And
named
he was killed. He
Buckner
was
Physical
killed with
Fitness
a
Center in Alaska?
very famous reporter, I guess you would call him, newsman. He was killed at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Not Ernie Pyle, that's a name too.
It must have been an awful occasion to have both the general and also a member of the press die.
Yeah.
Wally, was it Ernie Pyle?
Huh?
Were you thinking of Ernie Pyle?
Yes. You want to know about the,
Well, I want to ask you about the Japanese soldiers, Wally. Oh, yeah.
yeah, where I got that.
The reason you have the Bronze Star, exactly.
I got that front star. I was doing guard duty in Okinawa one day, which was not unusual. I did a lot of guard duty. Just walked around the perimeter of our outfit with a rifle. And there was a bunch of us doing it. 2 hours on and 2 hours off, that kind of thing. And I was walking there, and 3 Japs came up the road with their hands up, and no clothes on, just that triangle thing they tied around their middle.
Sure.
They came up to me, and I says, "Halt, who goes there?" Didn't say nothing. They just held their hands up and came toward me, and then the guy in the middle went down on the ground. And one of the other guys jumped on his back, and the guy had a machine gun tied to his back. And I started shooting like crazy, and everybody came running, and we shot him and threw a hand grenade, got rid of him.
That's incredible, Wally. I heard an interview that you did talking about the Japanese soldiers. I think you had said something to the effect that Japanese soldiers, they wouldn't willingly surrender. They always wanted to fight. So tell us about that experience.
They committed harikiri. Was called
I see. They called that committing a harikiri back then?
harikiri.
Wow. What a name for it. And the reporter that you were talking about earlier, Ernie Pyle, the reporter, a famous U.S. reporter, Ernie Pyle.
Yeah.
That's the gentleman you were referencing earlier,
Right.
who died the same day as General Buckner
It
died.
was the same time as me, same thing.
Yeah, you were in
Same
that
place.
same area.
Same place, yeah.
So World War II ended, but you didn't yet have the points necessary. There was a point
Right.
system.
You need 28 points. I only had 26, so I got lucky, and they put me as a occupation duty to Korea. So the outfit, the whole outfit, got to go to Korea. So we went to Seoul, Korea. Incheon was the name of the port we went into, and Incheon, and then we went to Seoul and started. There was nothing there except a few Japs, and we got rid of those, told them to go home. War was over. So we got those guys to go home, and we had to look for establish a headquarters there. So I went with an officers, a captain, Captain Van Zandt, and we went and got a billing, for the headquarters, offices and place for the guys to sleep. They slept in the Hanto Hotel in Seoul, and we took over the Japanese and Korean offices there for our offices. That was in Seoul, and I was there with the first echelon, the first bunch that went in there.
And there were some Russian soldiers there as well. Isn't that right?
They were all the time in our headquarters. There was a liaison, they call them, liaison officers. At one time I had to go to, because I was in the motor pool, and we had to send a jeep with the Russian, so the Russian could go back home, because there was a 38th parallel,
Sure.
on the other side. So I had to go from Seoul to there, and it was a long trip. And I was there.
You had to catch a train back to Russia.
And I was there and get the jeep back from the Russians. We used our jeep, and I took the Russian officer in the jeep to his headquarters on the other side of the 30th parallel. Cold in hell. Oh, I've never been so cold in my life. They did give me a parka. You know what I'm talking
Sure.
about?
Yep.
This was a fur-lined thing with a hood on it, and it's still cold. It was a miserable time. I tried to take the jeep to there, to the 38th parallel, and then bring the jeep back.
You can still feel the cold now.
Freezing.
Something I forgot to ask before we get to the end of your service, Wally. Where were you located when Nagasaki and Hiroshima were bombed? Where were you?
I know, Okinawa.
Wow.
I
Okay.
was in Okinawa. I saw that plane
The Enola Gay.
that went. Yeah, guys, they pointed it out.
Yeah.
That's the plane that dropped the bomb.
Wow. What do you remember about when that happened?
Huh?
What do you remember about when those atomic bombs were dropped? What was the word around your
Nothing.
unit? But you knew the war would be over soon. I'm guessing.
We thought so.
Yeah.
We thought so. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. You don't get much news as a private in the Army.
Sure. So tell us about your service ending. When was your last day in the Army?
Well, actual duty in Korea, I got papers. There was discharge paper, and they put me on a ship. In those days, you didn't go by plane. They get the GI. They put on a ship.
Sure.
On a ship going. We finally wound out in Seattle, Washington, and then someplace else I forgot.
Did you go to Chicago at some point?
That's where we went from there. Yeah.
Okay.
From where we landed on the ship, they put us on a train, troop train. The troop train went to Chicago, and everybody got
Released from there.
released from the army, yeah, and got some money that they owed me. Big deal, you know. You can only
Sure.
get $28 a month.
Gosh. Can you imagine that $28?
$28 a day. Wow.
And that had to pay for everything. Toothpaste and everything.
Food, lodging.
Laundry,
Travel.
Everything.
What was the very next thing you did after you were officially discharged? Where'd you go?
I got discharged in Chicago and came here to Jefferson Barracks for papers and money and things. And then we went to, then I came home. I came home and I had a choice. And, I went to WashU for a while. I didn't like it.
Was school at WashU too slow for you? Was it not interesting to you? What was the issue?
No, it wasn't that. It was the times. There was too many people for too little classes. There was all these GIs, thousands of them, going to WashU. Had a lecture hall. You couldn't hardly see the professor here, you know? And it was just not comfortable to go to school there.
Your father wanted you to become a dentist?
Yes.
Why do you think he wanted that for you?
I don't know, he thought it might be a good occupation and didn't want me to be like him.
Tell us about that. What was it that your dad, what did he not want you to become exactly?
I really don't know. He thought he was a failure, I guess, and he didn't want me to become one. I didn't really realize what was going on at the time. Not like he did. I went and sold shoes, and then I went on the road. I sold infants and children's wear. I had a car, and I drove to all the different towns.
Your region was Kentucky, Tennessee, and southern Indiana, is that right?
Right.
Tell us about your experience in Hazard,
Right.
Kentucky.
Right.
Do you remember Hazard, Kentucky?
Oh.
Tell us about
boy,
that.
I'm telling you, some of that stuff was so backward, like eastern Kentucky and Tennessee, in those mountains. They were miserable places. People lived in those hills and in little towns there. And each little town had a children's shop, you know.
That's why you were traveling there, because it was part of your route.
And call on those little stores.
And so this actually leads to something I forgot to ask about. Let's start with your job as a clothing salesman. Did you experience discrimination while you were working in that position?
Jew thing was always there. You couldn't put your finger on it, but it was there. You could feel it.
Yeah.
You could probably feel it today.
What about when you were in the Army?
Same thing, just not that much.
So it was never outright. No one ever would say something to you, discriminatory.
No.
But you could kind of feel that they were thinking it.
That was there. It was there.
Yeah.
I had to go in a few fights. I had a few fights.
Really?
Yeah. I remember hitting one guy over the head with a rifle butt.
Wow.
After he said something.
Something rude. Yeah. Now, eventually, you met your first wife. Tell us about that.
My first wife?
She was a secretary or a receptionist?
Yeah, she worked at the infants and children's wear place. She was a secretary there, and that's where I met her. And we got close and we got married. and had children.
You had 3 daughters, is that
I
right?
had 3 daughters. My daughter was Deborah, Debbie, and Nancy, and Gail. Gail died,
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that.
and Nancy got divorced, and my daughter got a brain tumor.
I'm sorry to hear that, Wally.
Anyway,
Tell us about when you met Rosalie.
huh?
Tell us about when you met Rosalie.
Met Rosalie through my first wife died from cancer. A cousin of hers saw me running around with a lot of bimbos. And she says,
She had to set you straight.
yeah, he needs a good wife.
Yeah.
Nice Jewish girl. So she fixed me up with this one.
There you go.
Nice.
How long have you guys been married, Wally?
We've been married since, let's see, almost 30 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
29 years.
That's fantastic. Is that right, Rosalie?
Yeah. Same
Okay.
wife. She ain't changed.
So, Wally, tell us, when you look back, well, no, here's the question I wanted to ask you. Try to think back to when you were serving in the United States Army. Try to think back to that. Did you ever have a moment where you sort of had to sit back and think, I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. My parents left so we could escape discrimination and possibly death. And now I'm serving the United States Army in one of the most consequential wars there ever has been.
No.
I love the honesty.
No, I never thought about it. It's
When you look back at your service, when you look back at having served and having been a soldier, what kind of emotions are brought up when you think back to that?
Jesus. Where does this psychiatrist come up with that?
He is pretty good.
No, reminds me of the 2 guys walking along, and one of them says, and then the guy came by and said, hello, and the other guy says, I wonder what he meant by that.
That's a great joke. Well, I won't keep trying to dig into your psyche, Wally. My apologies. Right now we're looking at a picture of you
Yeah.
during your service, and we're looking at some of your medals, including your Bronze Star. When you look at this, and when you look at you as, what, you're maybe 20 in this picture,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I wonder what he meant by that.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to speak to someone who lived through history. Is that something you kind of think about, that you lived through history?
Yeah, but you got to remember, everybody has one, don't they? Everybody has a history.
Sure.
I guess for us, it's
I don't
so
think you can
impactful
go-
because
I don't think you can go through life without leaving some kind of footprint.
That's a good point.
I like that.
I like that as well.
Yeah, you leave some kind of history, and you go through times, good times, bad times. I don't know, we're going through times now. Are we going through a good time or a bad time?
As a country,
As a country,
Yeah.
I mean.
I think that's up for debate.
I don't think so.
What's your perspective on where we are right now as a country?
Where
What's your perspective on where we are as a country right now?
we are as a country? It depends. I feel like I'm safe as far as being a immigrant, as far as being a Jew, as far as being. But why should I? Why should I have some thoughts about that, about being safe as a Jew? You know.
Do you not feel that you have a more than special opinion on that subject?
Not really. I always knew there was anti-Semitism vivid everywhere you go. And it seems like the times today are about the same. There is, I think it's let up some. I think people are more tolerant. They're more tolerant. They're not as anti-Semitically
aggressive
against the Jews as they had been in the past.
Sure. This is a good segue, I think, because I want to hear about what you and Rosalie do in the community with the Jewish Community Center. Tell us about your involvement. Are you involved with the Holocaust Center or anything of that nature?
I was when I was a little younger. I used to give lectures there.
Tell us about the lectures that you gave.
Well, about my life and so forth.
Sure.
I used to tell them there, had classes, class full of kids, usually college kids or high school kids that came and just saw it and told them my experiences, and that was about it as far as my involvement.
What sort of reception would you get from those students? Did they ask you a lot of questions? Were they really intrigued by your life?
They seemed like there weren't enough knowledge. They don't know
knowledge to know what questions to ask you.
They don't know what it meant. They can't picture hard for them to picture the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Education is there's something missing in their education as far as those years. The history, it's just history to them rather than experience.
That's a great point. That's a great way to say it. I like that.
And that's why we had a good laugh about it, but that's why I was asking those kinds of questions about how you felt during those times and the perspective you had, because both Jason and I, we're not historians by any means, but we're students of history. Mm-hmm. And so we love to be able to hear the first person point of view and perspective. That's why we're so curious and interested about how you felt and the emotions that you had and the types of perspective that you held. So,
of course. I can understand your feelings and thirst of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly. Yeah. When you look back at your life, Wally, how have you tried to live your life? What are the tenets, or what are the values that you've tried to live by?
Actually, tell you the truth, I like to be left alone.
Sure.
But, I've gone through so much of this shit that I'm really had it,
Sure. I know it's not your birthday yet, but in case I don't see you in March, happy early birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy early 100th birthday. It's truly incredible.
Isn't it something?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's incredible.
I could make it. Oh, maybe I'll make it, huh?
I think you will. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you inviting us into your home today, Wally. Thank you so much for letting us come to your house and to
You're welcome.
To interview you. I know that my partner here
You're welcome.
tried to get into your psyche a little bit, but we appreciate you and we appreciate
any little thing I can import to you about myself that might help the world. You're welcome to any of my
Thank you. You've imparted a lot of wisdom today, Wally.
My life.
I just want to say I'm very grateful.
But look at it, even today, our government, we're trying to keep people out. There's a lot of people that want to live here because it's free and it's one nation under God, and they can't make it. Everybody in this country had to come from someplace.
The last thing we'll ask, Rosalie has told us the German people invited you to come back to Germany.
Yes.
Tell us, we'd love to hear about that story.
I went to school in Germany as a kid, and they asked me to come back for a reunion or something. Wasn't it? Reunion, was it? Why was it that I had to go went back?
We were hospitably invited by the German people, so to speak.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a
Oh.
grand tour of Germany to say, we're sorry that this happened to you.
Do you remember that story?
Yeah. Sure.
Tell us what Rosalie's talking about.
We got this letter from the mayor of Wiesbaden. Full pay trip to come, fly into Frankfurt and be in Germany, and which we did. We enjoyed it. We really had a good time. They were very hospitable, very nice, and all kinds of sorry about what happened. But there's a feeling about Germany. What can I tell you?
There's a feeling you have when you think of Germany?
Yeah, that Nazis, they all left their print in Germany.
Like you had said earlier, not many people said anything, but you had a feeling that there was prejudice. It's a similar feeling, it sounds like. Germany as a country gives you that feeling that something's not quite right.
The guy in the SS uniform with the little saber, singing, and when the blood springs from the saber, all the Jews will be dead.
Yeah.
They used to walk down the street and sing that.
That kind of stuff stays with you.
Und wenn das Judenblut vom Messer spritzt, da geht's noch mal so gut. They used to sing that.
Wow. Well, like I said, this will be the last thing I say, Jason. We are so appreciative of you sharing your experience. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's like you said earlier, you leave footprints in your life. We appreciate you being so willing to speak with us, Wally. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. Have a good one today and a better one tomorrow.
Operation Insight is brought to you by the Mid-America Veterans Museum. Do you like our podcast? With your support, we'll continue to bring you great programming. If you'd like to donate, go to mavm.org and click on Donate.